they should start with that in mind, and that is the aim. I don't think it should be a straitjacket where they have to do it if they don't feel like it's necessary or they feel like they want to go in a different direction. I just the one sort of caveat to all of that, the one condition I have to all of that is I want to see Jeremy Swayman start game one of the playoffs this year in the first round and see what he can do when he's given a good position at the start of the postseason and allowed to have the same honors that Ullmark has had the last 2 years in a row, and see if he can do something different with it. See if he can seize control of the job and go from there.
Bruins Beat is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. My name is Evan Marinofsky, and today we are joined by Joe Haggerty. Hags, what is up?
The roles have been reversed, Evan. You are the master, and now I'm the pupil hosting the show. I like it.
I have to drive the bus now. This is
That's right.
I drive my license. I don't even know if I have my license.
Pressure's all on Aaron Marinofsky right now.
It is. How are you?
Good, buddy. How are you doing?
I am good. It's funny though. I love coming on your show because when I do Poke the Bear with Connor, I host it. And when I do Bruins Beat, I host it. So it is fun to just be like, well, I don't have to come up with topics. I just have to go on and talk a bunch of stuff. And whatever he says, I just have to respond to. So
that's it.
It is nice to be hosting again, though.
The guest lifestyle is a nice lifestyle to have on a podcast. It really is.
It is. Like, think about, like, the celebrities or the high-up famous people, whether it be in sports or in lifestyle, who just can go, like, have their own podcast, but somebody hosts it. So then they just sit there and it's like, whatever I think about something, I'll just riff on it, and then some other person just asks them a bunch of questions just to keep them rolling. Like, that must be nice. Like, you just go on and on about whatever. So.
That's when you know you're truly big time. When you're like, the podcast has your name and it's your podcast and you don't even host it. That's when you're...
I agree with you. That you're 100% right. But sometimes it is fun to... direct it in your own way. It's funny though. Sometimes like with Connor, him and I'll get into like we'll talk about like a movie or something, and people in the YouTube comments are like, "Why aren't they talking about the Bruins?" So, and it's true. People only tune in for our Bruins opinions, so I get that. I can live with that.
Yes, you go down the Toucher and Rich, or now it's Toucher and Hardy, I suppose, rabbit hole.
Yes.
Not talking enough about sports during their actual sports show, which they used to do all the time. When I used to guest host, I'd see like the text line, and you would see like it just light up with like people complaining about it when you would start talking about like when Wallach and I would do like the Beverly Hills 90210 trivia off or something like that. People would be extremely angry with us that we weren't talking. We had the audacity to not talk about Bill Belichick's 4-3 defense for an entire 15 minutes.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to listen to on my ride into work. I want to hear. I want to hear a breakdown of the Patriots' offense and what it's going to take to beat the Bengals this week. Yeah,
I want to hear
really
if the
what I need.
defensive linemen are controlling their gaps or not on the defensive formation. That's very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to drive off the road when that stuff comes on the air.
How many completions did Mac Jones had during the second practice of training camp? That's very important stuff.
It goes back to like, and this is what's annoying, and I get it. Patriots, are number one. I get that, but like, even now, they suck. Like, why is so much time being devoted to them on radio, TV, and everything when like Bruins are kicking ass, Celtics are doing well, like. That's where I always go, and I get it. I understand Patriots are number one. I get it, but like at the same time, it's like, oh my, really? We're doing like Belichick again?
I think it's because they don't know any better. They don't know any different. I think it became such a default over the last 20 plus years, or 25 years, when Brady was here and they were great. That was the king. That was the thing you were going to talk about. That was going to dominate like 80% of the discussion at all times of all the four sports on TV and radio. And like, there's certain shows too, like, Beetle and Zoe, are they going to talk 90% Bruins or 90% Patriots? I think it's fairly obvious what they're going to talk about. Like, when you see how some of the shows are comprised too, it makes sense. So I totally get it too. And I've accepted that. And it was definitely like that at NBC Sports Boston when I was there, where like sometimes you would get frustrated because you're like, I want to do a weekly segment, Bruins segment or NHL segment, and I want to do this and I want to do that. It was just like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We've got, Tom Curran doing 6 segments a week on what happened in training camp that day and who dressed for practice and all this other stuff, which if you ever talked about that via the Bruins, they'd be like, why are we talking about this? That's the most boring topic in the world. I'm like, we just did that on the Patriots yesterday. I don't know.
You're right. But again, that has opened the door, though, for podcasts like yours and mine and Connor's for a place for people to go for Bruins where we just talk Bruins. And, it's fun. And that's why we do well. It's a good thing. So there are pros and cons. But speaking of...
everything in life. Just like everything in life.
It's true. There's pros and cons to everything. Speaking of things not getting enough time, or people not getting enough time, there has been criticism thrown at Jim Montgomery for the lack of usage of some of the younger players on the roster, guys like Merkulov, Steen, Beecher at times, Lauko, Lowry, coming from Thursday night's game, 6-5 epic thriller that the Penguins pulled out. And there were some things about he didn't use his those younger players in the third period during crunch time. And are you worried at all about his usage of some of these younger players, whether it be Thursday night or just in general?
I mean, I'm not really worried about it. That happens in hockey. Mason Lowry was a -3. He was on ice for 3 of those goals that Pittsburgh scored in the first 25 minutes or so of that game. He was a liability. He was bad. He shouldn't have been playing the second half of that game. To tell you the truth, I could flip this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later. On some level, I'm worried that some of the young guys can't hold up enough of the bargain to keep the heavy workload off the best players and the players that you want to not be playing so many minutes right now. And that's a problem. I'm worried, a game like last night, Mason Lowry played 8 minutes and 23 seconds, season low. He was a -3. He was awful in that game last night. And some of it may have been, carryover from Columbus. He takes that puck to the mouth. He has to have dental work the next day in between, misses practice, loses a tooth. That's a tough stretch of a few days for a 22-year-old kid. But he was not good last night. Not good clearing the front of the net, not good in zone coverage, not really good at anything defensively. And that turned into Hampus Lindholm having to play 29 minutes last night.
Yeah, almost 30 minutes.
That turned into Charlie McAvoy going 26-plus minutes last night. That turned into – and they enter a stretch starting Saturday against Tampa, where they're playing, I think it's 5 games in 8 days, including a trip out west, Colorado, Arizona, is it Seattle, I think, too? Oh, no, Vegas. And then St. Louis. So you're talking about a super grueling stretch coming up, and they were forced to play guys that many minutes last night at home in a game they didn't even get a point out of. That's a killer. And not just him. Merkulov had 5 minutes and 33 seconds last night. The fourth line, Merkulov, Oscar Steen,
Lauko.
And Lauko didn't play, right? Was Lauko a scratch or did he play?
Was he out last night? I forget. Yeah. They didn't play, so I forget. I thought I'm blanking on who was it. Was Beecher out Thursday night?
Yeah, no, Beecher played last night. So Lauko was in the press box. I saw him walking by.
Oh, never mind.
When I was up there. So I think it was Beecher. Merkulov, and Steen. They were awful early in that game. I think they were running around in the first period, the first shift they went out there. So Montgomery barely played them. Pastrnak ended up with 23-plus minutes last night. Marchand was over 20. Zacha was over 20. Well over 20, Zacha and Pastrnak. Pastrnak had 23-plus minutes. So the fact that those guys, again, couldn't hold up their end of the bargain, Merkulov looks like the action's too fast for him. It looks like he's been chasing it since he's been up here. He has not had the puck a lot. He did hit the post once in one of the games earlier on. He's had a couple of moments, but for the most part, it looks like he's not processing the game as fast as he needs to, and he's not moving as fast as he needs to, and he's chasing a lot. so the fact that the fourth line was that ineffective last night, Beecher hasn't been great lately either. The fact that they're chasing, that he couldn't play the fourth line, didn't feel confident enough to play the fourth line because the young guys, again, are not playing well enough. That is very problematic. You know, I understand sometimes fans want to get into the traditional, like the coach should just play the kids and, you know, you got to put them out there and you got to have trust in them in the third period. If they're not playing good hockey, you can't put them out there. You know, it's the National Hockey League. It's not a developmental league. They're trying to win games. You know, they have to win games. There's a lot of pressure on Montgomery and everybody else to make the playoffs, to finish as well as they can. It's not the AHL where you can play players at the expense of wins and losses. That's just not how it works in the NHL. Well, so it's I think for people that understand that, it's frustrating when you hear he doesn't play the kids, he's hurting the kids, you know, blah, blah, blah. If they play well enough, they're going to be in. That's the bottom line. Like, I think Montgomery has not shown a track record of distrust of young players. I think what he shows is you have to earn it and you have to be able to play well enough for him to have the confidence to put you in there. And that is just traditional hockey 101.
That's hockey.
Earning the coach's trust to get in there in the third period of a 1-goal game. You know, like that's got nothing to do with like being hesitant to play the kids, like whatever. So I'm not necessarily.
And that's at any level. That's at that's high school, college, your son's team. Like
I'm not concerned about like him not playing the kids. I'm concerned that they're not. When it gets to the dog days in January and February, when it gets to the grind, when it gets really difficult and things ramp up in intensity, you worry that they're not going to be good enough to hold up their end of the bargain, and it's going to turn into so much is on the shoulders of the best players because Montgomery has to throw them out there too much, that they're going to empty the gas tank before they get into the playoffs. And that's a very real concern with this team. And that's part of the reason we see these swoons now at this point in the season. When they go off the rails for 4 games and give up like 17, 18, 19 goals, it's not because they suddenly forgot how to play hockey. It's because I think all the minutes that they're playing are catching up to them and the schedule is catching up to them and they just don't have the energy and the legs. And you need to stretch out the lineup and get some stuff from everybody in order to avoid that happening. And
bingo.
That's a real problem right now.
And you saw that in the second period on Thursday's game when they breakdown after breakdown, but you nailed it. It's not a Montgomery problem. Like this, no. This is not, Montgomery's got to play the fourth line more. He's got to play 6D. Like, it's not that. The problem is your fourth line is all rookies.
Yep.
Your fourth line is entirely rookies.
Yeah, and it wasn't supposed to be that way. The Milan Lucic situation, it really hurt the Bruins. Like it did. They need a fourth line, a veteran fourth line, physical presence, guy that maybe has a little bit of an offensive spark. You know, a guy that has a little bit of dynamic offensive ability, like in a bottom six kind of way. They need that kind of player. I think they're short, like an established NHL fourth line guy that they lost with Lucic, and I think they need to bring somebody in to replace that.
I agree. I mean, Garnet Hathaway last year was kind of the prototypical guy you would need on that line because, again, in a game against Pittsburgh where you're chasing the game throughout and it's a back and forth affair, that stuff's going to happen down the stretch. That stuff's going to happen in the playoffs. Lauko, Beecher, and Steen, or when Merkulov's down there, they will have some good games, and they've had good games this year. It's not like they've sucked. They have,
but the goals and the offense has not been there.
Has not been there. And are you going to trust them in a close game against a team like Pittsburgh? Probably not. And he doesn't. And you roll 3 lines. And I agree with you. It's going to catch up to them at some point.
I think if you put a veteran like a Garnet Hathaway type, like somebody that is a banger and somebody that can do a little bit offensively, has a little bit of offensive upside on the wing on that fourth line, and you put him with Beecher and Lauko, I think that could be a very workable fourth line. I think that could be an effective fourth line. I just think they need to find another piece out there. I think that's one of everybody wants to talk about top 6 center. I think that's one of the pieces they absolutely need more than a top 6 center right now is somebody that they can plug into the fourth line. And they also need a defensive banger. They need somebody that's a defenseman that is going to be dirty, mean, and nasty in the D zone and clear bodies from the front of the net. Both of those things are doable at the deadline and things that aren't going to be super expensive and things that are realistic that they can get. Elias Lindholm, not realistic.
No, I agree with you on that.
Stuff they need to be targeting.
I agree. I completely agree. Before we get into the rest of the conversation, quick word from our good friends over at FanDuel.
The NFL season is wrapping up, and there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, the app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
So, Hags, we're actually recording this during the World Junior game.
Can I just say really quickly, what a magnificent bastard that Gary Tangway is when he makes a read like that.
I know. He makes us seem like he makes us seem so low rent with our voices.
There is gravitas to Gary Tangway that I could only dream about having someday.
Oh my God, I didn't know him. You worked with him forever. I don't know. I've never met him, but the voice.
He used to do the one of the car commercials too, where he'd be like the 12-ton 6-ounce nutcracker, and it was on like New England, like whatever. So it was like a regional commercial, so you'd hear it on TV all the time. And it was Tanger just delivering this awesome read about a nutcracker of a pickup truck that you need to go out and buy.
Yeah, I mean, he like the voice. There was a movie or a show I was watching years ago that I remember just watching, and he was in, and I'm like, oh my God, that's Gary Tangway. I forget the show.
My dad's in the Screen Actors Guild, and he's been in a lot of movies. So he and my dad will see each other like at auditions, and like have seen each other at like acting stuff, like when movies and TV shows.
Is your dad an actor?
Yes, he's in the Screen Actors Guild. Yeah,
I did not know that. That's so cool.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
So he always and his nickname is Stump Haggerty, and whenever I see Tanger, he's always asking me to ask how Stump is doing and tell Stump I said hello.
That's awesome. That's great. But anyways, World Juniors is on as we record this. I don't have a TV near me, so I don't know what's happening.
0-0, halfway through the first period.
Okay, this is gonna be like a watch party during
That's why I'm glad this is a quick podcast, so I can maybe miss the first period and then jump right in.
Exactly. Well, we people during the playoffs are always like, why don't you do a watch party, like a live stream, and we can see your reaction as we watch? And I'm like, that sounds miserable, man. Like having a camera on you for 3 hours as you like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta go get like more chips or something.
A watch camera on me while I'm doing my job covering a game of the Garden would not be interesting at all.
Oh, it's so boring.
Watching what's going on. I would not be
so boring.
I would not be compelling in any way, shape, or form.
No, I sit there just note, so no watch parties here. Anyway, World Junior is on right now. Patra is home from World Junior. Yep. Where do you see him slotting in whenever they decide to put him back in the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, I would suspect it's going to be in like a third line center sort of situation. They've been kind of piecing together a third line the last few games with Frederick playing center between Danton Heinen and James Van Riemsdyk. That's not the ideal solution. I think you could potentially see, Freddie and JVR with Patra in the middle. I think that would be, a decent look. But he could play with a lot of different players. Obviously, he's had good chemistry with Geekie, but Geekie's playing really well with other players right now. He had a goal and 3 points against Pittsburgh. He and Pasternak were outstanding in that game, and Marchand was too. So there's a few different possibilities, but I suspect it's going to be in like a pseudo third line kind of role. I would also suspect that Merkelov is going to go back down to Providence just because I don't think he's been all that great since he's been here, and understandably so. That happens a lot where a guy's got to, go up and down a couple times before it really takes. But I think, you put him there, you put Beecher back on the fourth line. Maybe you put Heinen with Beecher and Lauko. Maybe that's something that could work, at least in the interim, until you maybe find, somebody that's more of a conventional fourth line piece. But, I think putting him between big bodies like JVR and Frederick makes a lot of sense. Maybe putting him, if you want to work in pairs and you put him with Geekie, that would make sense too. But with Jim Montgomery, I think we've learned one thing. Even if that's where he puts him to start, he's not going to stay there very long with the same players. Jim Montgomery like changes things around a lot with the forwards. I think that's his style, and I also think that's by necessity out of the pieces that they have. I don't think this is a traditional group of forwards where there's going to be like lines that don't ever change, like Cassidy had a few years ago when he had the perfection line and everything else. So we'll see what happens. I'm less interested to see who he's going to start with, and more interested to see what the usage is going to be, how much they're going to use the load management sort of like healthy scratch resting philosophy with him, what he's going to look like coming off World Juniors. Is that going to be a good experience for him where he's going to come back with a lot of confidence and jump? Is it going to be an experience where he's going to look like he did before he left? Obviously, everybody's hoping for the latter the former rather than the latter. But we'll see. I mean, one thing is for sure, right? Like when you watched Merkulov, the puck didn't follow him around like it did Patra when he was there.
No, not even close.
I think Patra is a much better fit at the NHL level than Merkulov is, and it's obvious when you're watching when you watch Merkulov play and kind of chase the puck around, and you've watched Patra play where he's made plays. He can hold on to the puck and he forces defenses to react to him instead of chasing everything around like Merkulov has done to a bit.
And that's the difference between a hockey IQ of someone who's destined for the top 6 versus the bottom 6, I think. And maybe that develops with Merkulov as things go along, but I agree with you.
Yeah, and to be fair to Merkulov, he's been playing he's been slotted in kind of a bottom 6 role.
100%.
Which he might be miscast in, and maybe that's part of the reason we're seeing everything that we're seeing too, is he hasn't really been in there with the skill guys. But, I just think side by side, when you're looking at the two of them as centers that are young, that are like trying to establish themselves in the NHL, Patra has impressed me, even in his, even in games where he hasn't been as strong, he still has the puck on his stick a lot. Like Merkulov, I have not seen that out of him to the point where it's made me sit up and take notice as of yet.
Yes, in an interesting way that we could stream online. It hasn't happened yet. I think you hit it. To me, like when you bring Patra back, I would rather him be down the middle than on the wing. I know Frederick has worked well with JVR and Heinen recently, but to me, you said it, JVR, Patra, Frederick. And then, as we kind of just discussed, that fourth line needs a little bit of an older presence, someone that Montgomery trusts. Montgomery does trust someone like Danton Heinen. He plays a responsible game. He's not your typical fourth line banger, and I don't know if he's a long-term solution, but I wouldn't mind seeing Lauko Beecher Heinen down in that fourth line and seeing if that changes anything with the personnel that you have. Because again, as I said, I would rather Patra be down the middle, and with two big bodies like JVR and Frederick on his left and right, and as Montgomery kind of continues to see what trios work, I like that. So to me, I think that's the spot you put him in. And Geeky's been dynamite in the top 6, a 3-point night on Thursday. He's looked better. I think he continues to sort of progress. So
I like him a lot. Like he is not a flashy player. He's not somebody that really made you sit up and take notice the first few months with his skill level. But when you watch him over a long period of time and you watch him as he's gotten more comfortable, you see the way he plays. And it's a very sort of old school way that he plays where it's like hard skill. It's like blue collar skill that he has. It's like you need to see him make plays a few different times doing what he's doing before you believe it's not coincidence and he's actually trying to do that. It's like, it's not like dangling through somebody. It's like leading yourself with the puck a little bit and winning a battle with the guy physically and then going and getting the puck you left there while you were battling to get through it. And it's like
a step up. It's like a step up of Nola Chari, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's like impressive to watch, but it's a very old school way that he plays. And he's kind of a throwback player in that way. And, but it's all based on second and third effort. It's based on him being like 6'3", 210 pounds and being very strong and winning all of his battles when he's around the puck and when he's in 50-50 battles for the puck and, being around the net and making things happen. He's also got a very good shot too, which he showed off the other night when Pastrnak found him with that pass. So like I now understand and see what the NHL, what the Bruins NHL scouts and what the advanced scouts saw in him when they wanted to sign him in free agency. And I've been pretty impressed with him. Now, is he a center? I don't know because he's awful in the faceoff circle. There's a bunch of those centers right now that are really struggling in faceoffs. I think I like him better on the wing with Matt Poitras and them together because I think they've shown a lot of really good chemistry. When you get your playoff lineup together, or your best lineup, whatever you want to call it. But like, I think it's good now to see him at least getting confidence and building up his points and his offense, and really settling into who he's going to be with the Bruins.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And right now, it seems to be working out. Before we get to the rest of our conversation, a quick word from our friends over at HelloFresh. Breaking the action to tell you about our delicious friends over at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner time recipe rut, but keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week. There's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. Turn to HelloFresh Market for yummy add-ons and enjoy the season's limited time fall flavors lineup. It's that time of year, right? Things get you in the mood, like apple cider cake with caramel sauce. All the ingredients come fresh, from the crushed tomatoes to the Italian chicken sausage mix to the Parmesan cheese. It's delicious, and I feel like a chef when I'm doing it. What's better than that? And this is a busy time of year for me with hockey starting up. I don't always have a ton of time, so this recipe makes it quick to enjoy something amazing. So join in on the fun. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Now, back to the show. So go from Gary Tangway to me voicing it. So it's a very steep downgrade.
Talking about the yummy add-ons. Well, clearly I could hear the smile on your face when you were talking about the yummy add-on.
It's good, Hags. I'm not kidding. I use HelloFresh all the time. Like I cooked
it. We definitely have our share of HelloFresh here in the Haggerty household as well.
Yes. HelloFresh all the way. Anyways, Jim Montgomery was on Toucher and Hardy on Thursday morning, and he was asked about using the goalie tandem in the playoffs, and he said, yes, we fully intend on doing so. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but it was to that sentiment. And then I saw the clip, of course, of Felger being like, oh, we'll do it. I want to see it. It's a bad decision, this and that. I've been consistent on this. I want to see them roll it out. I want to see them roll out the tandem come the playoffs. I think you agree with me on this. And I again, it doesn't have to be Swayman, Ullmark. It can be, guy plays 2 games, plays well, then you bring the other guy in, see how he does. It doesn't have to be exactly every other game. I don't think it has to be. So I'm curious what you think.
See, what I feel, and I've been pretty consistent about this, is I would like Jeremy Swayman to get the ball to start with. And I
think it's trending that way with how he's been playing.
Like, I think that is only fair, since Ullmark has twice gotten, a lot of slack, and then Ullmark gets thrown into these really difficult situations at the end of series the last, 2 years in the playoffs. I would like to see Ullmark start game 1 of the playoffs and then go from there. Like, if he's lights out.
You mean Swayman?
Swayman, I'm sorry. If Swayman is lights out in game 1, and are they really going to go away from him and, like, say, I got to do the – no way. No. I would like to see – and, if Swayman starts game 1, he plays good but not great, and they lose, whatever, like, go with Ullmark in game 2. And then kind of – I think they should start with that in mind, and that is the aim. I don't think it should be a straitjacket where they have to do it if they don't feel like it's necessary, or they feel like they want to go in a different direction. I just the one sort of caveat to all that, the one condition I have to all of that is I want to see Jeremy Swayman start game 1 of the playoffs this year in the first round and see what he can do when he's given a good position at the start of the postseason and allowed to have the same honors that Ullmark has had the last 2 years in a row, and see if he can do something different with it. See if he can seize control of the job and go from there. And it sounds funny to say this the day after he gave up 6 goals and got beat by Sidney Crosby in the third period for a power play goal in a 6-5 loss to the Penguins where, yes, the defense sucked in front of him. They weren't clearing bodies. They were allowing point-blank shots from the slot. They were allowing chances off the rush. But there was also maybe a goal or two in there that Swayman, could have stopped when he was under siege and didn't too. So, he wasn't his best self in that game either, even though I didn't think he was bad by any means. So it's a little funny the timing to say this, but I stick by it that I think he should start game one, and then they can decide from there. If it's pointing towards going with Ullmark in game two, and you didn't get the result quite that you wanted, fine. But if Swayman comes in and they win 3-0, and he makes 30 saves, go with him in game two. And then when you feel like you need to make the change, and you're getting that urge to make the change, you feel like it's necessary, do it right then. Don't give that goalie another game or two like they did with Ullmark last year when they should have pulled him out in game 5, and they didn't. And they ended up going with Ullmark and sticking with him. And it was too late by the time they brought Swayman in game 7. I don't want to see that kind of a situation, or a situation where Tuukka Rask is hurt and they have Swayman there and they won't use him and they will play the whole hurt goalie instead because he says he wants to play. I don't want any of that. Go with the goalie that makes sense. If it turns into a Moog Lemelin situation where they're rotating them, great. But if it turns into a situation where one of them just says, I'm taking this job and you're not taking it from me in the playoffs, I'm your guy, even better. I just think when push comes to shove, it's going to be really difficult for any NHL coach to say, I am a robot. I am starting Ullmark 1, Swayman 2, Ullmark 3, Swayman 4, and just do that through the whole play. I don't see that happening. I don't think that's going to happen at all.
Yeah, I think it's more practical the way you mentioned it of Swayman has a good game 1, great, start him game 2, right? And then he plays 2 in a row. Okay, we'll throw Ullmark in for 3 if Swayman is not as hot as he was in game 1. Give Swayman the night off, see how Ullmark does. Maybe if Ullmark is hot, he goes again. And if he isn't, you put Swayman back in. And I think you can do that. I agree. It does not have to be Swayman game 1, Ullmark game 2, Swayman game 3. It does not have to be that. But I do want.
It's kind of pointless. It's like a pointless radio stunt to ask about the goalie rotation in friggin' January 3rd.
Yeah,
so
that
much
too.
Change between now and then. They're looking for something that they can say, oh, he told Toucher and Hardy this. Woo woo. It's January, dude. Asking about the goalie, what they're going to do with the goalies in the playoffs in January is meaningless. Let's talk about that when the playoffs are right around the corner and it's right before the playoffs start. Then you'll get a better read on the situation and what they're going to do, because they're not going to stick with it in April just because they said that's what their intention is to do right now in January. That's ridiculous.
That'd be funny if goalie Bob's we're going to go Swayman for the whole playoffs, and Montgomery's but I said this on Toucher and Hardy back in January. I got to stick with my word.
I told Hardy this back in January. I got to stick with it now.
Exactly. Anyways, Hags, thank you for joining. What can people look forward to from you? What would you like to plug?
Consistently excellent and enthusiastic hockey coverage in all facets, Evan. That's what they can look forward to. Go to joehaggerty.substack.com. You can get all of my stuff. Sign up for a premium membership. You get all my content, everything I write about the Bruins and the NHL, sent straight to your inbox. And clearly, you got to go to Boston Sports Journal as well, bostonsportsjournal.com. I write columns after every single Bruins game, working with a host of talented people there, including Greg Bedard and Mike Giardi. And you can also go and listen to the Pucks with Hags podcast, of which you've been a fine guest on more than one occasion here at the CLNS network. We drop episodes twice a week. I've got one coming up with Steve Conroy and Mark Diver that should be fun. And we got some updates from Diver on he's usually down on Fabian Lysell down in Providence, but he actually had some decent things to say about Fabian Lysell.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm excited for this.
People should look forward to that. But it was from his Barca Lounger.
Yeah.
We always appreciate what he broadcasts from there, so it's good stuff. People should check that out when it drops.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's awesome. Well, Hags, I appreciate it as always, and you Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.